During dinner at a restaurant, my mother-in-law made some deeply hurtful remarks, implying that I didn't belong there simply because I wasn't related by blood. This made me feel undervalued and triggered my desire to leave immediately. As I rose to go, she demanded that I pay for the meal since I was leaving early. However, feeling mistreated, I refused to pay for someone else's meal. My name is Samantha, and I work in an office. My husband, Peter, and I generally have a happy marriage, but there's a significant issue. His mother. She constantly criticizes me and interferes in our life. Although I've shared my concerns with Peter, he doesn't recognize the problem, believing his mother's actions are just signs of her affection. Over time, her intrusions grew worse. She had a key to our home, given to her by Peter, and would let herself in uninvited, critiquing everything from my housekeeping to spreading unfounded rumors about me among our neighbors. I pleaded with my husband to consider moving to a new place, but he was too preoccupied with work to address the situation. Then, a turning point came when Peter received a significant promotion and raise following a successful project. Viewing this as an opportunity for a new beginning, I suggested that we think about starting a family now that we were more financially stable. I hope this might help him see the negative impact his mother was having on our lives and the need for change. However, Peter had a different perspective. He believed that if we were going to start a family, it would be best to live in a town more suited for children, a place with ample daycare options and parks unlike our current location. After some discussion, he agreed to move, which thrilled me even more than his recent promotion. But my joy was short-lived. The very next day, my mother-in-law appeared unexpectedly, as was her habit. I braced myself for her usual critiques, but her demeanor was unusual this time. She came to celebrate my son's recent professional success and had reserved a table at a fancy restaurant known for its exceptional food and service. "It's posh and everyone raves about it," she explained, inviting me to join. "That sounds nice. Good for you," I replied, maintaining politeness despite my lingering frustrations with her. "Clear your schedule. I really want you to come," she persisted, ignoring my attempt to decline gently. "Don't say no. We want you there," she added, with a firmness that allowed no room for refusal. After saying this, she smirked and left, which puzzled me. Previously, she had often excluded me, but now she was not only including me but also insisting on my presence. Feeling something was amiss, I later discussed it with my husband. He revealed that he had already agreed with his mother that we would attend together. She had specifically chosen this restaurant for us all to celebrate as a family. This unexpected turn of events left me conflicted about her intentions and our upcoming family outing. Peter was genuinely excited about the upcoming dinner. "Don't you feel the same, Samantha?" he asked. However, my feelings were quite the opposite. "Sorry, but I'm not excited. I'm worried about how much it's going to cost at such an expensive restaurant. I don't want to go. Just tell them I have something urgent and enjoy yourself," I told him, my unease about the event growing. "Why are you being so negative? It's not just us. My brothers and their wives are coming too. It would look bad if you weren't there with the whole family," he argued, clearly thrilled about the prospect of dining at a fancy venue for the first time. Despite my reluctance, I felt pressured to attend. It seemed my husband was more aligned with his mother's perspective than mine. This lack of support drove me to take a drastic step. I purchased a voice recorder online, suspecting that the harassment from my mother-in-law wouldn't stop at the celebration. I planned to discreetly record her behavior, hoping to finally make my husband see the reality if he continued to dismiss my concerns. I even considered divorce as a last resort, and preparing for that possibility brought me a slight sense of relief. Yet, as the dinner day approached, my mood was somber, filled with apprehension. I hardly knew my husband's brothers, having only met them briefly at our wedding, and my interactions with their wives had never gone beyond basic pleasantries. Upon arriving at the restaurant, we were ushered by the waiter into a large room already occupied by my mother-in-law, my husband's other brother, and his wife. At the dinner table, all of Peter's brothers and their wives were already seated, leaving just one empty chair. Peter looked perplexed. Did the waiter get the seating wrong? He wondered aloud. "I'll go ask. Everyone, please start without me," he said, and then he stepped out of the room. No sooner had he left than my mother-in-law stood up, her expression harsh. "There's no seat for you. Why would I invite a stranger who just married my son to a family celebration?" she asked, her tone biting and dismissive. "So you have a choice. Prove you really want to be part of this family or leave and never come back. Decide now." "I'm leaving," I stated immediately without hesitation. My mother-in-law looked taken aback for a moment, perhaps expecting me to plead for her acceptance instead. "Listen to me carefully," she continued, undeterred by my response. "If you pay the entire bill for everyone here, I'll acknowledge you as Peter's wife. I understand you must be feeling frustrated being treated like an outsider. So, pay up and become part of the family," she demanded. "I already told you I'm leaving. Why should I cover the expenses for someone else's family gathering?" I retorted, turning to leave. In response, she slammed her hand on the table and raised her voice. "Can't you see I'm offering you a chance to be part of the family? Are you really okay with remaining a stranger? Pay up!" "No, I'm perfectly fine being seen as a stranger, and since I'm not family, I won't be paying for your meal. Goodbye, mother-in-law," I said with finality. As I walked out, she tried to follow me, but by the time she reached the entrance of the room, I was already gone, leaving the confrontation and the oppressive dinner behind me. By the time I reached the exit of the restaurant, I was determined to head straight home and send an email to my husband detailing the entire episode. However, to my surprise, he returned home just 15 minutes after I did. He explained that the waiter had confirmed there was no mistake with the reservation. Rather, my mother-in-law had deliberately caused a scene. It turned out that my decision to stand up for myself had a ripple effect. The wives of my husband's brothers, who had silently endured similar mistreatment from my mother-in-law, found strength in my actions. Emboldened, they too decided to leave the restaurant in a decisive stand of solidarity, and their husbands, the eldest and third sons, quickly followed them out. I braced myself for the inevitable backlash from my mother-in-law, and sure enough, within 4 hours, my phone started ringing non-stop. It was so incessant that I eventually blocked her number, yet one call slipped through from an unknown number. "Hello, sorry for calling so late. Is this Samantha's mobile phone?" The man on the line introduced himself as a police officer from a nearby station. He informed me that after everyone had left the restaurant, my mother-in-law tried to continue eating and then shockingly attempted to have the bill charged to me. However, the restaurant staff, already displeased with her earlier behavior, denied her request. They were under the impression that I would not return to settle the bill, especially after leaving upset. Finding herself in a bind, my mother-in-law was advised to pay by card, but she had neither a card nor enough cash to cover the expenses for everyone's meals. Desperate, she tried to reach out to other family members to help cover the costs. Despite numerous attempts to contact family members for financial assistance, my mother-in-law received no responses. Frustrated and enraged, she started lashing out, her anger escalating to the point where she began breaking expensive vases and flower pots within the restaurant. This disruptive behavior prompted the restaurant staff to call the police. When the officers arrived, they managed to somewhat calm my mother-in-law, but she remained defiant, refusing to accept any responsibility for the chaos she had caused. With the restaurant yet to be compensated and faced with a difficult customer, they requested the police to escort her home. Feeling a sense of duty after ignoring a call from the police, my husband and I reluctantly returned to the restaurant to address the situation. Upon our arrival, we found the police still attempting to pacify my mother-in-law. As soon as she saw me, she glared and shouted, "You're useless. This mess happened because you didn't pay the bill. Isn't it only natural to help your mother? Pay up now." I was taken aback by her nearly threatening tone, especially in the presence of law enforcement. The officers had made it clear that if no one took responsibility, they would have to take her either to a family member's house in a patrol car or arrest her for attempting to leave without settling the bill. Exasperated and determined, I responded firmly, "Please take her away, arrest her, or do whatever you need to do, but make her take responsibility." My mother-in-law looked stunned by my assertiveness. "How could you say something so heartless? I can't believe it. Just pay the bill. It's bad luck to have a family member arrested," she pleaded. However, my resolve was firm. "I don't care. I'm not family, and I don't want to be associated with someone who's acting irrationally and causing a disturbance," I replied. With that, I tried to leave the restaurant, leaving the situation in the hands of the police to manage as they saw fit. My only desire was to distance myself from the turmoil and ensure that my mother-in-law faced the consequences of her actions. However, my husband, who had remained silent until now, suddenly intervened with a stern look. "I understand that what happened to Samantha was awful, but is it really serious enough to warrant an arrest?" he asked, coming to his mother's defense. "You're missing the point," I retorted. "She's in trouble with the police because she tried to leave without paying and caused a scene. It has nothing to do with me. Or are you suggesting that I should be responsible for paying for 7 people's meals, even though I didn't eat anything?" My husband fell silent, but then walked past me towards the police and the restaurant staff. Anticipating his next move, I called out to him as he walked away, "If you're going to pay for her meal and compensate them, we're getting divorced. Think about that." He didn't respond to my ultimatum and silently took out his wallet. Feeling hurt and betrayed, I left the restaurant and walked back home along the familiar road. Once home, I began packing my essential belongings, preparing to leave. Just before midnight, my husband returned. "Mom's not getting arrested. It seems she was really in the wrong, but the restaurant said they'd forgive her if I compensated them and promised she'd never come back. I didn't have nearly enough money, so I had my brothers come and help." "Oh, I'm so tired," he explained, his voice weary. He continued to talk about the events that unfolded after I left, clearly irritated by my lack of response. Then, noticing my packed bags, he approached me with a look of confusion. "Hey, what's with these bags?" he asked. "I'm getting ready to leave," I replied, my decision firm, signaling the depth of the rift his actions had caused. "Because we're getting divorced," I declared. "I told you that if you sided with her, we'd get divorced. You can't say you didn't hear me," I continued, my voice steady and resolute. My husband's face registered shock. He looked at me, his eyes wide with astonishment, before his expression shifted and he began to raise his voice. "What's happening? You've been acting so strange today. I understand that Mom did something terrible, but why does this have to lead to divorce?" he exclaimed. "I've repeatedly told you I'm being mistreated," I countered, frustration clear in my tone. "Even with evidence and others supporting my claims, you still chose your almost arrested mother over me. Isn't it justifiable that I want to divorce someone who behaves like that? I've had enough." He continued to protest, but I hardly listened. My focus was on leaving the house and preparing for the divorce. The very next morning, I went directly to procure the divorce papers. When I signed them and handed them over to my husband, he made a spectacle, lamenting about not wanting a divorce. However, when I mentioned involving a lawyer, his reluctance faded, and he signed the papers. I promptly sent them off, marking the end of our marriage. Finally, I felt a profound sense of freedom, being on my own again. Later, my husband moved out and went to live with his parents. It turned out he had depended heavily on me for household chores, and without me, he struggled to manage on his own. The house quickly fell into disarray. Disliking the messy environment, he ended the apartment lease and returned to his parents' home. Moreover, a similar fate befell the eldest and third brothers. On the day my husband called them to assist with the financial compensation at the restaurant, both encountered disagreements with their wives. Their wives staunchly refused to pay for a debacle that was their mother-in-law's fault. These tensions highlighted underlying issues, showing a pattern of behavior that extended beyond just my situation. However, the brothers opted to dip into their savings to help their mother, making this financial decision without discussing it with their wives. This choice sparked heated disputes and dampened the warmth of their relationship, ultimately leading to serious talks of divorce. Both brothers eventually returned to their parents' home, and like their mother, they refused to engage in any housework. The situation culminated with my mother-in-law and her 3 sons, who seemed reluctant to grow up, all moving back to their parents' house. This family drama quickly became the talk of the neighborhood, fueling gossip. Neighbors whispered about how the wives had allegedly abandoned the 3 brothers. In response, the mother-in-law staunchly defended her sons and placed the blame squarely on their wives for the familial strife. Upon hearing about this, my husband nodded with smug satisfaction, firmly believing that divorcing had been the correct decision. Despite the swirling rumors, my relationship with the neighbors remained strong. They were well aware of my mother-in-law's difficult personality and maintained a respectful distance, sometimes sharing a quiet laugh over her antics. As time passed, my mother-in-law developed a notorious reputation in the neighborhood as a parent who had failed to properly raise her sons. My ex-husbands were tagged as mama's boys by our community, criticized for siding with their mothers rather than supporting their wives. Despite their repeated efforts to reach out to me, I took decisive steps to start anew. I changed all my contact details and moved to a new house. By doing so, I ensured they could not find me, securing my peace and starting a fresh chapter away from the past turmoil. Since severing ties with my mother-in-law and her side of the family, my life has transformed remarkably for the better. The relief of no longer having to navigate the stress and drama she brought into my life is immense. Moreover, the opportunity to forge new friendships has greatly enriched my days. During the tumultuous period of my divorce, I found unexpected camaraderie with the ex-wives of my former husband's brothers. Our shared ordeals with my mother-in-law brought us together, and we've since grown close. Now, we frequently meet up for meals and enjoy weekend shopping trips. Interestingly, I find myself thankful to my ex-husband for one thing: introducing me to these incredible women who have become dear friends. In just 3 days, we're excited to explore a new cafe in town. It's refreshing to engage in activities that we genuinely enjoy, free from the shadows of past toxic relationships. This newfound freedom is incredibly liberating. I'm leading the life I've always wanted, surrounded by friends who uplift and support me. I often reflect on how different my life would be without these friendships. They have filled a void I didn't even realize was there, and for that, I'm profoundly grateful. I cherish these bonds deeply and hope they last a lifetime, as they've truly changed my perspective on what it means to have supportive, meaningful relationships.